Okay, I'm gonna get started, okay? Uh, Hi, everyone. Welcome to SEDLS 2023. Woo! It's a little after 10 a.m. and people are rolling in, I see. I'm glad that you found the links to join. If you know friends who should be here and are having trouble finding the links, they should look in their junk mail, just in case our Zoom links document email from yesterday landed there. Or you can email our SEDLS email, which we'll share in just a moment. I'm Lynnee Argabright. I'm one of the people on the planning committee for the Southeast Data Librarian Symposium, also known as SEDLS. It's not SEDLS. I learned that like in June. It's SEDLS. So I'm here to get us all started. Welcome. Before we move on, I just wanted to acknowledge all the other fabulous folks who planned this year's SEDLS. There's a lot that goes on to make this happen, and we had an almost entirely new group of planning members this year. So I want to give everyone a serious virtual applause for helping keep this favorite conference of mine going strong. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the people and the organizations that have helped us this year. David, next slide. First, thank you to the Research Data Access and Preservation Association, or RDAP, for hosting our registration system and helping us handle the monies. So we are grateful for that. And thank you to University of Alabama at Birmingham Libraries, particularly Marla Hertz, one of our planning committee members, for providing and personally hosting the Zoom platform for our meeting links and poster breakout rooms. By the way, I've noticed that RDAP's conference in March 2024 has its call for proposals still open. It closes on November 8th. So if someone is able to share a link to that in the chat, please check that out. So I'll talk a little bit now about the format and logistics of today and the days to follow. So today's short talks will take place in this Zoom session. You can leave and come back at any time. Please note that Thursday and Friday, though, have their own Zoom session links, so not the same link as today. You'll be receiving a welcome reminder email in your inbox every day with our shared document that has all the Zoom links. And if you're in the Discord, we can send the links to you there directly. For attendees during short talks and the keynote session, when you come into the Zoom room, you'll be muted by default, like you are today. You can use chat for a general discussion and comments, ask questions using the chat for everyone to see, or by selecting the host only option if you want to send to host eyes only. After all the short talks have occurred in the short talk block, we will have a brief Q&A opportunity for you to ask questions to any of that block's short talk presenters. Post your question in the chat or raise your hand if you would like to speak during that time. And you can raise your hand using the reactions menu in the lower bar in Zoom. If you would like captions to be turned on, that is also going to be in that lower bar. There should be a little CC or closed caption button to enable the live transcript. So we do have that going, and then in the recording, we'll have the captions provided as well. Now for short talk presenters, please be sure to be in the Zoom room 10 to 15 minutes prior to the beginning of the session block in which you are presenting. So not just your presentation, but the entire block. When you join, please raise your hand using the reactions menu, which I've already seen some of our presenters have done, to help the host easily find you so they can easily assign you as a co-host so you can share your screen and unmute and use your video and audio. Moderators, who are members of the SEDLS Planning Committee, will give you 5-minute, 3-minute, and 1-minute left verbal prompts to help keep talks within their time limit. These could get cut off a little bit, so we'll also put those reminders in the chat. For presenters, do not unmute yourself or start screen sharing or start your video until you're given the go-ahead by the session host. We'll be recording each short talk session block separately, so please be aware that the host will make announcements like the recording has begun and the recording has ended throughout the day. Regarding workshops, which are longer and intentionally more interactive, these will be held at 1 p.m. on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and the workshops each will be in their own Zoom sessions. Workshop registrants will have received the link to join, so check your inbox. And if you've registered but can't find the workshop link, message the help channel in the Discord or email the SEDLS email. Please note that some of the workshops had registration caps, and we did not enable waitlist this year. For the poster sessions that are at 11:15 today, at that time, join the separate poster Zoom room for Wednesday that is located in the Zoom links document. And then you'll be able to hop at will between posters that will be held in separate breakout rooms off of the main Zoom room. This is the same as last year. It went really smoothly, so we've decided to keep that the same. Join and leave posters at any point throughout the poster session. You can ask questions, you can chat, whatever. You won't have to wait for the host to assign you to specific breakout rooms. You can just jump to whatever you want. Posters are already deposited in OSF and will be shared via the Discord as well. So you can asynchronously download the posters, see them, and then the poster presenters will be sharing their posters in whatever format they would like in their breakout room. For all sessions, please remember to mute your microphone when not speaking, as well as turn off your video if the connection gets spotty. You can check what time sessions will be at on the SEDLS 2023 program webpage on our website. Next slide. This year, tomorrow afternoon, we'll have our first SEDLS keynote, and who better to kick us off with than one of our very own data librarians, Nina Exner from Virginia Commonwealth University. The keynote topic is humorously entitled, "Moving Forward and We're Not Even in a Handbasket," and it will be about how data librarians can use skills they already have to get involved in the emerging era of AI. More on that soon. We're very excited to build our confidence from this talk. So I'm going to talk about the Discord a little bit. One of the known limitations of virtual events is that attendees miss out on those spontaneous interactions and discussions that happen between sessions during a face-to-face event. To help facilitate the networking and discussion that for many of us are a key part of events like SEDLS, we have a Discord server. Symposium sessions are being held in Zoom, communications will still be occurring via email, and the Discord will add a networking and discussion functionality. It is not required for you to use to participate in the symposium, but it does add that little extra communication aspect. So if you'd like to ask questions and participate in discussions about those, for example, posters, but you can't make it to those poster sessions, or if you run out of time for your question during a short talk Q&A, whatever, the Discord is a great place for that. To access Discord, you can use it on one of the three formats pictured on this slide, and then you can log in at discord.com, and we'll put a join link in the chat. You do have to have a Discord account for at least 5 minutes before you can join, so we can avoid spam bots joining. Within the Discord, we have a few fun channels you may want to check out, including a introductions channel where you can introduce yourself, a general channel to talk about general stuff, a job board channel, a Animals of SEDLS channel to share your cute pets hanging out with you over those next few days. This year, if you have any data song suggestions or whatever, we have a Musical of SEDLS channel. More logistical channels include a welcome and announcements channel. If you need help, we have a help channel and a how to use Discord guide. We also have one channel for each of the 6 posters for this year. So scroll down in the list of channels on the Discord server to find those in case you want to talk specifically about one of those posters outside of the poster session that'll occur later today. And that is also linked to the OSF deposited poster asynchronously there. Last slide. There are a lot of links that are collected in the Zoom links document that we sent out by email. We'll share the link to this Zoom links document again in the chat. The Symposium program you can see on the SEDLS website is posted with the abstracts and session times. The slides and accompanying materials, including workshop content, will be deposited into OSF. We'll be uploading session recordings to YouTube on our SEDLS, our Southeast Data Librarian Symposium YouTube profile. It'll become a 2023 playlist, essentially, though we won't be doing recordings for posters or workshops. We have a shared notes document this year. You may recognize it looks quite a bit like RDEP's conference shared notes format because we love that community building. Feel free to add notes there or download the notes from there at the end, like I always do. This document also has useful link reminders at the top, including the YouTube music playlist that one of our committee members, David Rockland, groovily made for us to play during breaks this year. If you like those data-related songs, you can listen to them all day, every day after this. Again, here's the link to join our Discord. We have a code of conduct, which you can read in full at this link. The Southeast Data Librarian Symposium organizers are committed to providing an environment that allows attendees to participate during the day without fear of harassment or discriminatory behavior. We have a Google form linked here that will be actively monitored by symposium organizers in case you need to report any violations of the code of conduct. If you have questions, you're welcome to contact the SEDLS email that I will be monitoring throughout the day if you have questions. If you want to post on any social media site, please use the hashtag SEDLS 2023. And finally, we have a link for an attendee certificate. Sometimes people are asked to somehow prove that they were attending a conference. And so this is our way of giving you something. But if you need anything more, please just email the SEDLS email and we'll do what we need to do. So with that, I think that's all we have. Welcome to SEDLS 2023. Use the Discord plentifully, learn lots, and we're happy to see you. Our next session, our first session of short talks will begin at 10:20. So in 3 minutes. Enjoy.
Data, I'm passionate about data. Data, I'm passionate about data. Excel spreadsheets, pivot tables, passionate about data. Online sharing, automation, passionate about data. Information segmentation, passionate about data. Ones and zeros, network heroes, passionate about data. Data, passionate about data. Data, passionate about data. About data, monthly dashboard, sick week platform, passionate about data, asset tagging, content mapping, passionate about data, order number, Bitcoin cruncher, passionate about data, analyzing, warehouse mining, passionate about data. It's data, and I'm passionate about data.
Robert or
Yes. Okay.
or Tatiana, sorry. If one of you wants to pull your slides up, we'll get going in just a moment.
Can do. So, I guess we could start then.
Yeah.
All right. Wonderful. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. And we're excited to start off the conference with the first short talk. So we're talking today about preparing for the future, teaching data literacy course in academia. I am Robert Laws, Data Web and Media Service Librarian, Georgetown University in Qatar. So I'm over in the Middle East and with my colleague Tatiana. Although I'm originally from Virginia, grew up near Fredericksburg, Virginia. So I have the connection. So, and let me pass it on to Tatiana.
Hi, and I'm Tatiana Usova. I'm director of the library at Carnegie Mellon University here in Qatar, but I used to work at Georgetown University in Qatar, so I was colleague with Robert. So, should we probably proceed, Robert?
Ready to go, yes.
Okay,
Ready to go.
so let me put you a little bit in the context. As we said, we come from Doha, which is capital of Qatar that had World Cup 2022. And we kind of work in a very unique ecosystem, which is called Education City. It's a visionary project of Qatar First Lady Sheikha Moza. She brought 8 universities in a very small space, so we can work from one university to another. And there are 6 world-class universities here that brought the top-tier program. And one of these universities is Georgetown. That's what we are going to talk about. Georgetown actually opened in Qatar about 20 years ago. It brought only its, as you can see, Bachelor of Science in Foreign Service program. That's one of the programs that Bill Clinton is graduate and some top politicians. And in Qatar, it's presented by 4 majors. As you can see, international economics, international history, international politics, culture, and politics. We have very small student population, which is about 450 students, but looking at population of Qatar, it's pretty represented. So why we decided to offer this program? First of all, we live in data-driven world. It means that it's served by increasingly complex algorithms. And I really like this phrase from Wired magazine that says data is the new oil in the digital economy. And working with data requires its own skill set. As a component of information literacy, it's critical that students learn how to think critically about statistics, data, and related visualization. And here on the slide, you can see a definition of the data literate individuals from the Ocean of Data Institute, because I find it pretty comprehensive. So data literacy these days can be probably as important as textual literacy. And we find that it's a good fit for ACRL framework for information literacy. So we situate data literacy within a broader information literacy context. When we look at the undergraduate population, that's actually population of our institution, most students, they rarely have exposure to interpreting data when they come to the university, and even less exposure to creating data in an intentional fashion and to the tools used to access and display data. So the question comes, how can we expect students to critically think about published or presented data if they don't have basic knowledge of how data is created, packaged, and disseminated? So anecdotally, we see that students sometimes, when they see published data or visualization of data, they think it's really objective and accurate. And as a librarians, we saw that there is a gap of knowledge and we need to address it. So we decided to create a course that will teach students to be responsible and proficient users of data. And that was one of the reasons why we decided to design and offer the course Data Literacy and Data Visualization. So you will see here in this roadmap that it took us about 1.5 years to launch the course. So we started in spring 2019 to ask some of the alumni, and there was one question that we asked. like, what kind of a skill would you like to have when you graduated from the university? And it's interesting, but a lot of alumni actually said that they would like to have some skills data related. Many of them were speaking that they would like to know how to work with Excel. So that was another reason why we decided to design this course. And it took us about 2-3 months to prepare the proposal and then design the syllabus, which we offered in 2019 in the fall to the curriculum committee, and it was approved. So we decided to launch the course in spring 2020, and we definitely had some limitations because it was not linked to any kind of subject course. We decided to launch it as 1 credit. So it means we had 6 weeks of student contact, which was 12.5 contact hours. And we didn't know what kind of skills students had. So we were thinking, okay, we probably need to find something not very complex. So we did go with the software, which is called Venngage. Many of you probably know about it. It's a web-based software, which served the purpose, but we found that it was very limited and clunky. And in feedback after the course, what we received for some very developed students, they found that it was kind of boring and too easy. So we took this into consideration, and in 2021, in the spring, when we were offering course, we did go with Tableau, teaching Tableau. But there was a problem because 2021, as you know, it was COVID time. So we had another challenge. It was, we were to teach the course online. But nevertheless, the course was pretty popular, and it means that in 2022, students still wanted to take the course. Actually, we had for 15 kind of the cap of 15 seats, we had 15 students who registered and 15 waiting on the waiting list. So we decided to split it and offer 2 cohorts, the same course, and it was hybrid at that time. So the course was still very popular, and this year, 2023, we decided not even wait for spring. We decided to do it in fall. So Robert is offering it now because now I'm at Carnegie Mellon University. So I would like just to speak a little bit about what do we offer. It's a quick, brief outline. And if you would like to know more, because we are kind of constrained by time limit, you can see here at the end of the slide, there is a reference to our article that Robert and I published in 2021. There's a lot of detail about how we started the course, what was the course about, and how we saw the development of the course in the future. So you can see here in the outline that the course is for undergraduates. We didn't teach high-level skills of, for example, research data management. We really wanted to give them the skills, and there were 4 learning outcomes. The first was to understand effective design and to be able to apply them in visual communication. You can see it in week 1. Then grasp the concept of data set and know where to find or collect data and how to interpret it. Week 2. Then we were speaking about incorporate effective visual design, data visualization, week 4, 5, and 6. And as a final project, we really wanted to ensure that students not only learn basic principles of data treatment, but they effectively could do data visualization and apply it in real life situation. So I'll pass it to Robert to speak about kind of redesign of the course.
Thank you, Tatiana. So we made great progress with our original concept, and it was very popular. But we wanted to upgrade and offer a little bit more from the course. So that's when we chose to adopt Tableau as the software we would use to demonstrate the skills and information about working with data and building data visualizations. So you can see here, the course redesign follows very closely to the original concept of the course with Venngage, but we were focused on incorporating Tableau. Tableau, as many of you I'm sure know, is an advanced data visualization and data analytic tool. So we incorporated more emphasis on data analytics at this point in the course evolution. And Tableau lends itself to working with many different types of data, geographic data, time series data, and so on. So it gave the students a well-rounded access to how to work with all different types of data. And we spent a good bit of time working with data cleaning and building and modifying data sets to work well within Tableau. But just like our original course concept, we finished up the course with final presentations and gave them the opportunity to use real-world data to make an argument or tell a story with data using Tableau. So why did we choose to go to Tableau? It follows similarly to what we originally conceived for the course, is that students are demanding access to advanced skills that they can use not only in their coursework, but beyond in their careers in the working world. So Tableau was a perfect fit for that need. It gave them the ability to learn an advanced software and skill set that they could apply in other courses, but they could also use the experience to build their resumes. Tableau, there are plenty of jobs that actually either require Tableau or skills similar to Tableau, data analytics in particular. So students have the ability to put this on their resume and to market themselves with this advanced skill set. And we've had testimonials from students who've got internships or been invited to work because of their skills learned through the course. So, and why we think it's important to introduce advanced tools like this is because they give the students the ability to do advanced data analytics. And as you can see, I have a scatter plot here that is a simple analysis, but students can perform regression analysis and apply statistical models and their knowledge of taking statistics to our class. And Tableau is built upon data, really focusing on data analytics and allowing students to do that. We also applied a modified form of Bloom's taxonomy. So we didn't want students just to learn software. We weren't aiming for them just to be able to manipulate the software and move things around. We want them to really use their critical analytic skills and become data literate, like Tatiana said earlier. And the Tableau gave them the ability to continue to do this, but in a little bit more rigorous environment and using an advanced tool. So that leads us to where do we go next with this course or any course similar to this? And as I'm hoping there'll be a lot of discussions during the conference about AI and what it means for our profession and what we do. So I see we haven't implemented this yet because we still have the issue of getting student access to the advanced AI models. There's discussions about that are ongoing, but provided they can get access, we would be able to utilize AI and basically chat with our data to produce visualizations. So a quick little example is we have this data set here of data about the demographics of Japan. And you can see it starts in 1960 and it does different age groups here are included in this data set, and it goes quite far to the present day. So what we have done is brought this data into GPT-4, and we've done it using the advanced data analysis features. And I'm sure a lot of you are experimenting with this. And we queried it. We just asked it to describe this data and create a time series visualization with the data. And it was able to do that. And our visualization here. The great thing is that we don't have to stop there. We can continue to query the data using GPT-4. And also the visualization it produced is decent. It's not maybe the most attractive, but it is accurate. It's able to accurately visualize the data, and you can see there are some important questions that would be raised by doing some analysis on this data, and that's what we want students to do, and then ask follow-up questions based on what they are able to learn. So in conclusion, that's everything that we wanted to discuss, and thank you. So I guess now we have questions and clapping.
Please go ahead and either unmute yourself to ask your question, raise your hand, or pop it in the chat. Go ahead. I see a hand raised. Go ahead, please.
Songyang Chen.
Yes, Songyang Chen. Yes. Hi. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. Sorry, I'm not so sure about what time zone of Qatar, but thank you. It's a great presentation. This might be a stupid question, but I can't help to ask is that first of all, if this course you mentioned is a 1-credit course, if this course mainly taught by the librarians, or you're going to invite some guest speakers or guest instructors into that, and number two is it looks like this course is focusing on the like you said, to me it's more like how to design the data visualization to tell a good story based on data. So is there any part has been involved related to the analytics part of data, or a little bit more further, a little bit knowledge of statistics or mathematics? Thank you. Yeah, that's my question.
Sure. I could go ahead and tackle that one. So we actually work closely with our economics faculty, and we coordinate with them in terms of understanding where we fit in the curriculum. So we have dedicated faculty that teach statistics, econometrics, and macro and microeconomics. We actually fit in, we don't invite anyone in, but we coordinate with them. And what we offer is actually a more kind of less intensive mathematical entry point to data analytics and data visualization. So we get students who are across our curriculum, so including students who are history majors and culture and politics majors who don't have the mathematical or statistical background. But Tableau does allow them to produce effective visualizations without having to know calculus or other statistical mathematical skills and knowledge. But it doesn't preclude us from inviting advanced students from utilizing some of the advanced features of Tableau, such as ability to use Python code within Tableau, and to do some statistical analysis, including things like the p-squared, the r-value, and analyzing the data with advanced data analytic techniques like that. But we don't emphasize it. We do show them, but we don't emphasize that, just because our students are not all econ majors and experts in that area. Good question.
And I would like to add, yeah, very good question. And thank you, Robert, for really explaining it in detail. I just want to say that there are some constraints. It's only 12 weeks and, 6 weeks, 12.5 contact hours. It's very difficult to teach very, very complex concepts. And one of the things that we actually discuss in the article is how to move forward. It would be great to probably partner with one of the faculty and make their 3-credit course to be 4-credit course, to have our part, and probably let them teach some maybe subject or some complex things that you need. But at the moment, logistically, it's a little bit too difficult. So we teach this course to prepare them to be successful in other subject courses, which are required, because ours is elective.
Any other questions? There's some things in the chat, so I've been responding. There is, so we can answer this question. Since the course is primarily being taught by librarians, is Tableau software paid for by the student's tuition or library of the university? So that's a great question. And the cool thing is Tableau actually has a program in support of instructors and students that give access to Tableau desktop, their advanced software, not the public one, the actual desktop, the full-fledged software, without charge. And all we need to do was to demonstrate that we're an academic person. We work in an academic institution, and we're teaching with the intent to use Tableau in our course instruction. And there is, I can actually add in chat the link to where you can get more information about that. So I'll do that now.
And it looks like we are at time and need to start our second short talk.
Sure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was wonderfully informative. Our second short talk is the PAIR Data Primer for Ethical Data Stewardship.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Barsness. I am the Digital Records Archivist at the University of Minnesota, and I am going to give you a quick introduction to our CARE Data Primer for Ethical Data Stewardship. I will let the other presenters introduce themselves as we go along. I mostly wanted to give you a little bit of background behind this primer and sort of its genesis. So next slide, please, Anne. So this specific resource on the CARE principles for ethical data stewardship was created as an outcome of a fall 2022 data curation network professional development opportunity at the University of Minnesota. In fact, it was almost exactly a year ago. This multi-day workshop was funded by an IMLS award, and it brought together librarians, archivists, data curators, stewards, and related personnel in an in-person, peer-to-peer learning environment where we built our knowledge and capacity and in recommended practices for data curation, especially the curated steps. And that's a process that you'll hear about a little bit later in our presentation. And this came about because of the Data Curation Network. It is a membership organization of institutional and nonprofit data repositories whose vision is to advance open research by making data more ethical, reusable, and understandable. Specifically, the organization's mission is to enable researchers to publish high-quality data in an ethical and fair way, to collaboratively advance the art and science of data curation through supporting recommended practices, and to provide thoughtful, innovative, and inclusive data curation training and development opportunities. The DCN's curated collection of digital primer resources are all peer-reviewed and designed to provide readers an introduction to key concepts and topics of each primer is designed to support recommended and ethical data curation practices. And as open educational resources, they're licensed under a CC BY 4.0 license. They serve as an excellent resource for instruction and training in data curation in both formal and informal settings, such as higher ed, archives, libraries, corporate, nonprofit settings. The sky's the limit. Next slide, please, Anne. So as I mentioned, this started off as a workshop with the DCN, and we, the people presenting today, as well as a sort of a team of other folks, self-selected to work on a primer specifically on the CARE principles. Though we were interested in the subject, we realized very quickly that none of our self-selected group were from an Indigenous background, and we realized that this was potentially a significant blind spot and a challenge for us. From the start, it was very important for us that we found people that identified as Indigenous and that we asked them to contribute in ways that were meaningful and reciprocal. We spent a lot of time researching more of the context of CARE, its historical background, and looking for potential collaborators. We had a couple of people from the Native Nations Institute out of the University of Arizona who we partnered with, including Dr. Stephanie Russo-Carroll, who is one of the original authors of the CARE principles themselves. We also had a contributor from the Native Health Database from University of New Mexico, and they offered invaluable insight and feedback into the process. And as I mentioned, we wanted this to be a reciprocal partnership. So Katie, one of our presenters who you'll hear from later, is from the NNLM Region 3, and we were able to partner with them so we could get funding to pay these collaborators for their time and for their expertise. So that's it on the background of this primer. I'm going to hand it over to Alex, who will cover some important sort of intellectual grounding for this work. Take it away, Alex.
So if you can go to the next slide, please, Anne. But my name's Alex Wieker. I am the plant sciences librarian at the University of Minnesota, and I'm going to start by doing some key groundings for some concepts that make up the CARE principles. So to begin, tribal sovereignty is similar to other social and political entities, where it includes the inherent right to self-determination and self-government. It can kind of be defined by, well, it has been defined by the United Nations that Indigenous peoples have an inherent right to promote, develop, and maintain their institutional structures and their distinctive customs, spirituality, traditions, procedures, and practices. An example of this is in the US, where federally recognized tribes are self-governing, formal political units, and they are separate on the federal, state, and local level from government. Now, Indigenous data sovereignty, it extends to data from, about, or otherwise involving Indigenous peoples and or their interests, and this can be interpreted broadly. So a more clear definition can be described as, is the right of Indigenous peoples and tribes to govern the collection, ownership, and application of their data. For example, Indigenous peoples have sovereignty over their biomedical data that's been collected from them that tracks disease prevalence, just as they would have sovereignty over ecology data that is collected about flora or fauna found on Indigenous territories. And Indigenous data governance is kind of what ties this all together. It's about how data sovereignty is enacted with the aim to support continued sovereignty and flourishing of Indigenous peoples. It applies Indigenous principles, frameworks, and values to the control and stewardship of Indigenous data throughout the data lifecycle and across data ecosystems. For example, a community may create an access protocol. So some data may be only accessible to designated users or maybe under specified terms. And this can also include like sharing policies and so on. And next slide, please. So this is the CARE principles makes up a lot of the grounding for our data primer, and I'm going to give a quick overview. So the CARE principle stands for collective benefit, authority to control, responsibility, and ethics. It aims to implement equitable data practices, and they were created as a worldwide effort of Indigenous peoples to have their sovereignty, rights, and cultural traditions upheld and recognized. They have been designed to complement the FAIR data principles, and which aims to make data more open and machine read actionable. But it also does this by having Indigenous voices and preferences guide the research processes throughout the research data lifecycle. So collective benefit is the first principle, and it is centered in maximizing how data and data products can benefit the communities that own and produce that data. And it also must be grounded in the community's values. So for example, the Native Health Database contains bibliographic information and abstracts of health-related articles and other resources that cover health and healthcare of North American Indigenous peoples. It provides communities with tools to engage and collaborate in information exchange, enabling it to be a resource that can respond to the needs of its audience. Now, authority to control is the second principle, and it stems from the inherent right Indigenous peoples have to determine for themselves what data is collected, how it is used, and under what circumstances it is shared and preserved. This is not an exhaustive list, but some examples of this is like data about people, land, resources, territories, cultural knowledge, and tradition. An example of an implementation is with Mukutu, which is a content management system, and enables communities to apply unique cultural protocols to their data. And an example in Mukutu would be like dictating that certain content cannot be viewed until it's been formally reviewed by specific identified members of a community. Responsibility is the third principle, and it means that collective benefit and ethical use of data should be evident and meaningful. So part of this is developing sustainable, mutually beneficial relationships with Indigenous peoples that own or create the data. This may be investing in capacity development so that Indigenous communities can expand their own data capabilities and empower Indigenous peoples to be self-reliant in their own data practices. For example, Oklahoma State University's College of Medicine at Cherokee Nation is the nation's only tribally affiliated medical school. The Cherokee Nation is heavily involved with the funding and administration of the medical college, and it is built on Cherokee. It is built on the Cherokee Reservation, and it is guided by Cherokee Nation philosophies, making it an investment to the next generation. Now, the last principle is ethics, and this goes beyond the principles of collective benefit, and it's about prioritizing the rights and well-being of Indigenous peoples as described by their ethical frameworks and values. This ethical data use addresses power and social imbalances that hinder communities from fully asserting their rights and interests. To ensure that the rights of Indigenous peoples aren't violated, ethics should be the primary concern of all stages of the data lifecycle in order to minimize harm, maximize benefit, and enable future use. An example of this is how the government of British Columbia has created a writing guide for Indigenous content. It provides researchers with information to facilitate their navigation of terminologies and meanings associated with Indigenous peoples to promote and ensure respective culturally responsive communications. And Katie is going to be going over the curation steps next.
Thank you, Alex. So I'm Katie Farrier, and I'm the data science strategist with the network of the National Library of Medicine out of Region 3. So before you kind of get into actually curating the data set, there often needs to be a conversation with researchers prior to that. Before you actually get into the data set, there's some key pieces of information you might want to consider. So in having this information up front can really help the rest of the curation process go more smoothly. So you want to look for, make sure that there's documented contact with a tribal official and that the researcher has clear, explicit permission to do the research that they did. And if access needs to be moderated in any way, you'd want to find out more details about what sort of access control that they might need. And also, are there any licensing details or acknowledgements that might need to go into the metadata? And then next slide, please. And so this is just an example of what some of the metadata might look like, or acknowledgement might look like. And in this example, researchers were looking at migratory patterns of animals, but it was on reservation land. And so the Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior Chippewa, they own the data because it was on their land and it was culturally relevant to them. So the README file goes into more detail, such as like why this data is culturally relevant to them, why only the simulated version of the data was ultimately shared. And the README file also has contact information about who to reach out to find out more about the data set or other uses that are allowed with this data set. And I'll drop the link to this particular data set in the chat if you want to look at more of it. And then next slide, please. So this is the actual curated process. And the data curation network drafted and standardized these steps so that data sets would receive consistent treatment whenever they're being curated. So again, there's more information about these steps on the website and within our care principles guide too. And depending on what kind of data you're looking for on the topic, these steps may differ a little bit. This is a short talk, so I can't go into depth here about all of these steps. So I just kind of want to focus on the first one, which is check the files. When working with Indigenous data, you want to check and make sure that all the documentation is there. You want to look through the participant and use agreements. Are there current and potential future uses? Are those clearly stipulated? And like Alex mentioned before, Indigenous data isn't just people. This includes lands, environments, resources, territories, traditions, cultural knowledges, archives, and histories too. So check that the tribe has consented to the storage, the duration of the storage, and access to this data. And then the other step that I want to point out is augmenting the data. This can mean including a log of conversations with the tribe. There's a lot of context that goes into that. Maybe including a copy of the consent form. Some forms of traditional knowledge have very strict limitations, strict use limitations, and only certain people may be able to access it. And the tribe might not want data used for certain purposes. Like that example, they had some specific use limitations for that data set. Augmenting the metadata can include providing context and acknowledgements and adding that information about ownership and a point of contact to it. The next slide, please. So the very last step of the curated process is evaluate. And when you get to this step, you really want to think about how the care principles, if they're really incorporated into this project. And we encourage you to check out the primer and other resources about care principles that go more in depth to this kind of philosophy. But some of the main things is that you as a curator can do is make sure you're using appropriate culturally sensitive language in the metadata and the subject headings. You want to use the terminology that this community is using, whatever that might look like. You can make sure that the consent process is well documented in the data files and that any use limitations are clearly stipulated and documented and are implemented. And then
we're down to 3 minutes.
Okay, real quick. And then the last thing that you want to ask is this the most appropriate home for the data? There's repositories that specialize in Indigenous data, and you can always guide the researchers to those. And I'll hand it over to Anne to wrap us up.
Thank you. So my name is Myatt James, and I'm a data services librarian at Washington University. In addition to the content covered by my colleagues, so talking about the concepts of care and the curation process. The primer itself includes a number of supplemental resources, and of course we'll have links here for you all in this slide deck once we share that out. But there's additional links themselves within the primer, so we'd encourage folks to have a look at those. They vary, everything from additional resources related to, say, language, engagement with Native folks in the curation process, and then, of course, additional resources related to repositories and bibliographic information and databases themselves. And of course, for folks who'd like to access the primer directly, we do have a QR code here that you all can make use of. You can see as a part of this work here, it's directly accessible. It's online in its own repository, so it does include a stable link there. And of course, a thanks to all of our contributors. Again, we were very excited to be able to partner with Dr. Stephanie Rousseau-Carroll, who's one of the original authors on the care principles, as well as a number of additional folks. We did have peer reviewers as a part of this process, and we did work closely with a couple of folks out of the data curation network, most notably Wanda Marsolik and Shanda Hunt, who we'd like to thank especially. It was truly a community effort to bring together all of these folks, and also a thank you again to the National Library of Medicine, the National Institutes of Health, who did provide some funding to one of our collaborators as a part of this work. And we're happy in the next 1 minute, apparently, to take any additional questions that you have, as well as we've provided there our contact information so folks can reach out to us directly to get any additional questions that you might have as a part of this presentation or as a part of your reading over of the primer itself. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon or this morning or this evening.
And there's some great discussion in chat about how do you know when you're working with Indigenous data? I wonder if anyone would just like to share some of their thoughts out loud on that question.
So I can jump in real quick. So I wrote a response, and Katie did as well, that a lot of it is about sort of knowing where Indigenous folks are in your area, and remembering those places so that when they come up, you know. I also personally find value in sort of flipping the question, and instead of asking myself, is this Indigenous data, asking myself, is this not Indigenous data? All data has the potential to be Indigenous data. And if we ask ourselves carefully, think carefully about the answer, I think it gets a little bit easier to answer the more you practice. There are also amazing resources online. So you can look up place names, things like that. There are a lot of great people probably in your area who are happy to help you.
And with that, I think it is time for us to go to a break. And we will take 15 minutes and see you in the poster session at 11:15.